Yeah. Maybe because it's YouTube is complimentary services.
That's what I was thinking. Technology follows me.
I think I'd be set, because I'm pretty sure there's somebody taller in the room.
Sitting there.
I'm sorry, I'm good. I'm good. Something just sort of, you scared it, thank you, sir. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. We do apologize. We had some technical difficulties, but we're back on track. So I'd like to welcome you to our council meeting of April 30th, 2024. I'll have this meeting called to order.
Be it resolved that this regular meeting now open at 6:36 p.m. Moved by Deputy Mayor Denton, seconded by Councilor McDonald.
All in favor? Motion is carried. Is there any opening remarks from members of council? Being none, moving on to item 2, adoption of the agenda, amended addition or deletion.
Be it resolved that the amended agenda be approved as presented. Moved by Councilor McDonald, seconded by Deputy Mayor Denton.
Any questions on the agenda as presented? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Is there any disclosure between the interest and nature thereof? Seeing none, we will move to our delegation. So I'd like to welcome our MPP, Mr. Nolan Quinn, to come and we'll greet him with some questions, possibly answers. So I'll let you start, Nolan, and then we can maybe take some questions from members of the council.
2 minutes on now, so thank you for having me tonight. So I was presented with some questions, so I'll start off with those. It's been a busy time in Toronto. Obviously, we just released our new budget 2024, but I'll start right into the questions. So there was one about the Ministry of Infrastructure, about municipalities struggling with water, wastewater. Our government has invested over $1 billion in the new municipal housing infrastructure program, understanding that there are challenges in rural Ontario. We've also quadrupled the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund with a total of $825 million. This new funding is on top of existing and ongoing provincial investments in housing and community enabling infrastructure, on top of the $2 billion Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. Understanding though that there are challenges in rural Ontario to be able to have the water, wastewater, demand in full cost. So that's something that we are talking with the caucus and with Minister Surma quite consistently on that one, just to break down whether it's 50-50 or 77-23. We've pushed the Minister of Finance to have it at 77-23 and break down between the province and the municipality. The next one, not as great of an answer. So the Ministry of Finance with impact assessments, unfortunately, those are still frozen for the foreseeable time. There is a review going on of the assessment structure right now, and they're trying to make it as fair, affordable, and as competitive as possible. Until that review is done, there won't be any acknowledgement of impact rates going up or down. My own beliefs, as I was speaking to the mayor earlier, I believe it's not going to come before 2026 at this point. So there is some time before impact is going to be adjusting the assessments. So unfortunately, it is status quo on that front until the review is done. The next one was a rumor of adding 1% to the HST GST to the municipalities. There's no validity in that at this point. You know, the one thing I'll leave council with is that our government has, been very clear that we do not intend to raise taxes at all. Right across the board, the government has raised the tax since 2018, straight across the board. So I would, stick to that line that we're not intending to raise any taxes in our mandates as well. Unfortunately, I don't have an update with the provincial housing plan. That was something that we looked into, unfortunately, with MMH and all of the changes that are going on. They just did not necessarily have a concrete answer on that one. So unfortunately, I don't have anything with provincial planning strategy at this moment. Ministry of Education, there was a question about the provincial daycare subsidies. Understanding, again, it's more of a challenge in rural Ontario than it is in the bigger city centers. I have lots of stats and what we've invested into the Canada-wide early learning and childcare. So say that 10 times fast. The CWELCC is the 13.2 billion agreement that we have with the federal government to average the $10 a day daycare. We are having some challenges with that. But the one thing I think that stands out to myself is 92% of all licensed spaces in Ontario are under the CWELCC. So that $10 daycare. So there's 302,000 spaces across Ontario for children aged 0 to 5 or 1 to 5 in that regard. So 92% of all licensed daycares in Ontario are currently under the $10 a day structure, the CWELCC plan. But understanding there's more to be done, especially in rural Ontario. We have promised, or we have a plan that there will be a creation of 86,000 new CWELCC spaces come 2026, and that's on top of our 2019 levels. So we still have a ways to go on that file, but understanding that we are working towards that. We've also invested 160 million in funding to the social service managers to be able to support the startup grant for the childcare operators to help offset the initial costs. Expanding or creating new daycare licensing licenses in that regard. So understanding there is still a lot more work to be done on that one. We've been struggling to initially was to get people to sign on to the program at the $10 a day. I think there was some misinformation on that as well. But we fought to have for-profits daycare operators included in on that one. And that's why it took our government a little bit more time to be able to come to agreement with the federal government. Initially, they only wanted not-for-profit daycares, and there are a large chunk of for-profit daycare operators in Ontario. So we wanted to ensure that they were included as well. And then we also got a 5th year on the contract instead for the other provinces that we given. So just for everyone's knowledge, in Ontario, the province flows child care funding to consolidated municipal service managers. So the social service managers, which would be the city of Cornwall, to be able to provide funding for that. So the planning, managing, and coordinating of childcare within the regions. But this includes administrating childcare fee subsidy within the regions. The next question, Ministry of Finance, with regards to the 25% tax for agriculture and 75 split. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer on that one as well. But as I was speaking to the mayor prior, the only reason I have a little bit of knowledge of this one during the campaign, the previous warden, Mayor Tony Fraser, brought this one to my attention. So understanding it has been a long-standing issue that has been around for more time than I'd like to admit. So that one, again, our rural caucus colleagues will continue pushing, have some equity on there and understanding what it does to the local finances, the municipality finances with the 25-75 split on that one. But unfortunately, I don't have a more up-to-date answer on that one. But as I mentioned, Mayor Tony Fraser, as he was warden at the time, made it very clear. I think we spoke about an hour to an hour and a half on this file specifically. So the last question was Ministry of Health, understanding the hospital budgets and the deficits that are out there. Interesting enough, I am the new parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Health. So this file I know a little bit more than I did a couple of weeks ago. But ultimately, the standard answer would be this year, on average, across the board, hospitals received a 4% increase on their base operating budgets, and that was on top of last year's 4% increase on their base operating budget. So 2 years in a row, they've received 4% increases on their base operating budget. Understanding, though, there are some hospital corporations that are still struggling to balance their budget. Our ministry has made it clear that the province and the government will work with those individual hospitals to ensure that they do not cut services or cut surgeries in that regard. But they're, each hospital is their own corporation, but we will work to make sure that they are whole, that they are not cutting services in that regard. But ultimately, I am quite proud of the 4% increase that was received in this year's budget, as well as the 4% last year. So that 4% this year is an additional 965 million in operating funds in 24-25. As I mentioned, it's the second year in a row. And again, just some stats to throw out there. You know, this year alone, we're investing $85 billion into the healthcare system, publicly funded healthcare system, which is about a 30% increase since when we took office in 2018. So in 2018, it was around 62 billion. Now it's up to 85 billion. So we've seen some significant increases, but understanding there are still a lot of cost pressures that are in the system as well. I'd be remiss to not mention the 138. That wasn't part of the questions, but ultimately I know my team's been working with yourself to try to get that one light fixture with some Ringham roads without the fees that are associated with the Ministry of Energy and I believe NTO. I think there was a bit of back and forth there, but I believe we've been making some progress on that one. But 138 in general, you know, it is obviously an ongoing concern, whether it's at County Council or North Stormont or South Stormont or all across the region for that matter. I've been fairly clear with the Premier on that one. So we had a dinner with the Premier, all of the Eastern Ontario Caucus colleagues, and that was my number one priority for this region is passing the 138. Understanding it's been a conversation for over 20 years. I've even spoken to the Minister of Finance in this year's budget. They did have the uploading of the 174 highway or roadway going into the city of Ottawa. And I used that opportunity to just chime up and say that's great that we're uploading 174, but 138 is still an issue in the riding and the region as a whole, especially with the growth of this region and possibly the Great Wolf Lodge coming. That 138 does need some attention. So just understand that it is definitely a priority of mine. It was during the campaign something I ran upon, but I'm not going to necessarily let them ignore the 138. So I'm hoping that in the coming years there will be some more funds that are coming to that. As I mentioned, spoke to the Premier directly multiple times, Minister of Finance, the Premier's office, as well as caucus, to make it very clear that the 138 has been lagging behind some of the other provincial highways in southwestern Ontario. So that one is going to be one of the ones that I will probably work on most of my political career, but ultimately I'm going to ensure that this project continues to move forward. GFL, we unfortunately don't have an update on the natural gas expansion that's on the GFL project that we've been working with GFL and Ministry of Energy on. Unfortunately, as much as, you know, on the federal side, we hear that natural gas is going away when we have AMO and Roma and even Good Roads, there's lots of conversation around municipalities wanting natural gas. So interesting that one level of government is saying that we're moving away from it, but on the provincial side, every municipality wants it. So unfortunately, the want is greater than the funds available to connect all the communities. So I know Moose Creek will be included in on that. The one thing I wanted to mention about GFL just came in today. There was actually an approval on the environmental assessment to proceed with the expansion. That just came through today, so that was approved finally after about a year of time, or a little less than a year. So that's some great news. I know they are great community supporters and sponsors of you know what you're doing in the community. Internet in Moose Creek. I know we've had some conversations just recently on that one. I know there's some challenges with the internet in Moose Creek, knowing that that wasn't necessarily part of the province of, the promise of the province to be able to get everyone on high speed. Unfortunately, Moose Creek was seen as having high-speed internet, but you know, now understanding that's not the case. So conversations with the CAO, with Councillor Bugelli, as well as MP Duncan and the Rogers representative, knowing that all of the funds have been doled out on the provincial side, I will continue to have conversations, whether it's with the Minister of Infrastructure or directly to Rogers and other stakeholders in that regard. Another good piece of information that I felt like it's worth sharing here today is the South Nation Conservation Authority did receive a community emergency preparedness grant, and it was worth $32,775. I know it doesn't necessarily just entail North Stormont, but you know the offices are in North Stormont, so I think that is a great piece of information, as well as the Ontario Emergency Preparedness Week is coming up May 5th to the 11th. So that is, you know, a piece of funding that they did receive that didn't necessarily been received from everywhere across the province. So ultimately, to go back to a little bit of the healthcare conversation, you know, the 965 million were invested into operating funding this year alone. as I mentioned, is a 4% increase. That's on top of the 546 million we're investing into primary care starting in 24-25. Cornwall, so the Seaway Valley Health Center, just receives 4 million of that funding, which serves the whole region in that regard, to be able to address the immediate healthcare staffing needs and prepare for the future as well. Aside from that, those are most of my updates, unless there's any questions from.
Officer, so did you not say you had a big check that you were coming to?
Yeah, last time you saw it, it's all over.
Yeah, you could, it works as well. No, I will give the floor to any member of council have any questions. I'll start with Councilor McDonald.
Yeah, it's one that goes back a few years to some legislation that was passed around municipalities and conservation authorities, and I know this chairman this location. There's no raising wage in municipality. So I've heard recently that there's some conversation that perhaps they would be considering allowing municipalities to choose to retain the conservation authority to do area reviews. And all that sounds not that important. It's very important for small municipalities. So what that means is that a small municipality like North Vermont is not going to try to staff that position. And unfortunately, what happens when we don't have the staff to do that period reviews, they have to hire a consultant with the county. For what I've heard, that could be extremely costly, 4 times the cost, and often 3 to 4 times the timeline. So in the interest of building homes, but also allows us part of choice, to work with their conservation authority where strong. I was hoping that we might be able to provide more information to your office, on how that's specifically affected trials within our election.
I would absolutely love for you to share some more information with me. I'll be honest, the first I heard of this was this week in question period. Minister Grainsmith did speak about it. Outside of that, I don't have a whole lot of information, but if you did provide more to myself and my team, I definitely relay that to the minister to make sure that it is being heard, especially with rural.
You know, again, we kind of submitted our questions ahead of time, so I would really good with that. Thank you for answering the question.
The gentleman.
Thank you for being here this evening. Want to really kind of touch on the water and wastewater issues. This is going to affect the municipality across Ontario. Obviously, there's struggles across the province on that issue. How can we, or what can we do as a council to help give you the ammunition to, the worry obviously is that the veteran communities around the GTA eat up the bulk of this. That's where the bulk of the growth is right now. And it seems to be where the focus of the government has to be. Being that we're off forgotten in the eastern part of Ontario, and then us specifically being the smallest of the townships even within the eastern. It kind of, it's a little disheartening for us to think, okay, this money, this envelope is going to be gone before we ever get any of our projects through. So what can we do to help assist you to bring that message back to the Premier's office that it's really needs to be looked at outside of just the GTA?
No, it's a very good question. You know, not to copy what South Stormont is doing, but they did a letter writing campaign to my office. So all the developers, local organizations, stakeholders, they put some pressure on my office. So they had dozens of developers that sent letters that said, you know, development is going to be slowed down or it's going to come to a halt in South Stormont unless we truly get some attention. So I'd like to believe that if the CAO or ultimately there was some pressure put on my office, that it's going to help the conversation, you know, up further in that regard. But to follow your point, you know, constantly having conversations, I think the Premier is getting it, and that's why, you know, we're investing another $1 billion into water and wastewater. We were hoping the federal government was going to step up with ISIP funding. Unfortunately, whenever they had a shuffle of the minister, they haven't necessarily gone back there. I think we were fairly close to them matching some of our dollars. But ultimately, you know, that's for me to have those conversations. But you know, a letter of support of council of saying what it's going to do to development and how it's going to slow it down, I think that would help as well as the developers. But with Minister Surma, you know, these are conversations, even passing her at Queen's Park. She, you know, laughs and acknowledges that, you know, my area definitely has a lot of needs, not just North Stormont. South Stormont as well, South Dundas, North Dundas, and South Glengarry. So ultimately, all regions outside of the city of Cornwall have a dire need for more water and wastewater. So, you know, to continue those conversations, you know, having delegations at HEMO and Roma to ensure that we're being heard in that regard, the more delegations, the better. But I really, you know, not to continue preaching about what South Stormont did, but ultimately we have dozens of emails into my office that we can use as evidence as to what this is going to do to the whole region. The other thing as well is, and this is internal conversations we had, but how many regions are shovel ready for new housing? You know, it's one thing to be 5 and 10 years to bring the water wastewater in, but this region is ready to bring housing in more or less tomorrow, as long as we have water and wastewater. So that's something that's not necessarily lost on the Minister of Infrastructure or the Minister of Finance in that regard, that, you know, we can help you meet those targets for housing, but we need the infrastructure to be able to do it. You know, obviously I live on a well and septic, and understanding that if you're going to develop a new community and you're going to do it on a well and septic, the density is just not the same as whether water is there. And understanding that small rural communities can't necessarily foot the bill of these water, wastewater, you know, projects and how significant they are. That we truly do need that partnership with all 3 levels of government.
I can just add to that. So all our developers, so when you say shovel ready, we're more than shovel ready. The service are in the ground, we have lots that we can't allocate. And I'm hoping tonight we can get some movement so we can work with our developers to get moving. But as we're looking to invest in our communities, they need reassurance. And right now, the tough task is for us to identify saying, yes, we can assure you that we, but at this point, it makes it very hard for us to give them that sense of, and at the same time, I don't blame, we have some with us in the room tonight, but they are ready to be investing in our community, but when they don't have the answer, it makes it hard for them. Do they take it somewhere else? Or so I'm sure we're not the only one, but as far as moving forward, I think that the federal or provincial government has identified where these small communities, I understand we're not as a whole, we're small little pieces, but if you put all of us together, we do become a big part of the provincial plan for these additional housing units.
I agree, and ultimately we understand, you know, we had 200 million in the fall economic statement that was provided to water, wastewater, that would only scratch the surface, let alone an SPG, let alone all across the province. So that's why, you know, we've invested another $1 billion into it in this current budget to ensure that we can get there, because ultimately without the infrastructure, we're never going to get there. I'd like to believe that, you know, we're going to start hearing some of the results of the grants that have gone in and the applications that have gone in, knowing that we are not the only region that really needs this to be able to move forward with developers, and understanding the carrying costs of the developers as well, and the risk that's associated with the project itself. You know, that's heard loud and clear across our whole caucus, that ultimately these funds need to start flowing to ensure that not only the developers are able to move forward, but also the municipality.
Just quickly, so do they allocate so much fund when you talk about the big funding? Do they allocate so much for, so if we are competing against our level and not against the GTA, is there so much allocated for rural versus
So from my knowledge, the only thing that was really associated to the larger city centers is the Building Faster Fund. And that was 50,000 population or above, and there was 1.2 billion. I didn't bring that up in the other numbers I've thrown out there because that was specifically for the larger city centers. But the 825 million, no, it's not necessarily associated to rural or city outside of the Building Faster Fund, and those are the big checks that you've been seeing. If you follow any provincial politician, they've been all across the province for meeting their housing targets. But those are specific towards the cities that are larger than 50,000.
Any further questions? Seeing none, so thank you very much. Quinn, if any time, we appreciate when you can come in, and by no means if you can come with that big cardboard box, you're always welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. It's hard to get here on Tuesday nights. This is a writing week, so I'm very appreciative of you speaking and having you.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stick around, but I think you've got other engagement, so we will let you. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, adoption of minutes from previous meetings.
Be it resolved that the following minutes be approved as presented, regular meeting 8 to 9, moved by Deputy Mayor Dixon, by Councilor Don.
Any questions? And see none, all in favor, motion is carried. The adoption of minutes of committees and open boards.
That the council of the township of North Shoreline accept the minutes from the Horizon Community Center Committee meeting of March 4th, 2024. In information purposes, moved by Councilor McDonald, by Councilor Schaefer.
Any questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you. So, transparency and communication is important. But I guess what I'm trying to understand is why we're approving rec committee meetings. At this point, is this a new process that they're introducing? Like, are we expecting all of the rec groups to now submit their minutes? I just want to be sure that if we're moving forward with something like this, that we're doing it consistently rather than sort of one. A lot of work was done by Pierre and Ellen in the previous year to get all of the records pushing together as one. And to have one here, are we now asking all the records to submit their minutes for review?
Through the chair, I'll allow Pierre, as our coordinator, to expand on my comments, but if we're forwarded minutes for public transparency, we want to include in the public agenda. I would hope and expect that all of our other rec groups, if they're taking minutes for all of their meetings, they should be forwarding them to the CAO or the clerk's office for inclusion into the agenda package.
It's just, I've never seen these in both my tenures so far. I don't think I've seen a community center minutes before, so I'm wondering, is this a new process? Have we communicated that all the other rec groups, are they prepared to do that? I just don't want it to be seen as a potential imbalance between the different records. What might be more useful, in my opinion, I think these get posted on the website anyhow, so there's already transparency. They could come in as correspondence for chance, but if we're going to introduce one set of minutes, I would almost want to do that for the park committee. One, so there's kind of just one unified group that is represented back to council. That was kind of the vision for the art, was to be that one unified group together rather than sort of individual. Not that I don't like seeing them, the minutes are fantastic. It just might be better to the rec level going to correspondence and just be posted in general, unless everybody is signed up for submitting the minutes on a regular basis. Any thoughts on that?
Chair, do you want to comment from a rec coordinator perspective?
Yeah, honestly, I think this can be done once the position of full-time director is. Then we can have a real procedure and a real document that follows doing a legal meeting. And then they'll be able to share either once a month through a report from the director of all these meetings. And then we obviously be able to share them on their own website. But this will be transparent that every month the council will have a report of all the meetings that took place during the month, so we'll be able to just go along. Because some of them don't have the meeting all on the same night. It'd be kind of hard to justify always sending an email. It suggests that once a month, the director would be sending a report to council with all the meetings and the minutes.
Yeah, that sounds like your process.
Go ahead, Liam.
Through the chair, so it is in our procedural bylaw that all committees count. So, yes, we should be getting minutes from all committee councils and posting them in the agendas. So, any of your other committees that you have, we don't get very many committee councils actually sending in. But it is in there that we should be getting regular, minutes from all meetings.
So for in my opinion, if we're going to see, even if it's a documented process that people aren't following, if we're starting to try to move into that, I would rather move into that in a unified way so that it doesn't feel like, we're necessarily centering groups or whatever. I'd rather kind of deal with that in a unified way, because like I say, here now there's a lot of work to get all of the rec groups, it may apply to other groups beyond the rec as well. I'm just kind of speaking to this because it is the rec, minutes. They did a lot of work getting them, all unified, but even still today, as a counselor, I hear the odd person, ratepayer saying, you know, it's not fair that this group seems to get more attention or this group seems to get, you still hear it. So anything that we do, I just want to be sure that we don't disturb the balance anymore than we have. So just maybe that's something the PAO can take away and just think about if we're going to go forward with something like this, let's just make sure everybody's on board so that there's no risk of being balanced.
We can certainly, through the chair, we can certainly take that away. And again, it was, the minutes were proactively filtered to our office, so I felt it important and quite frankly, as I indicated in the end, procedurally, we are supposed to include any of those minutes within the agendas.
Councilor McDonald.
I just want to make a comment that I enjoyed getting them, and I agree that it could acquire community, minutes in the day. Sometimes it's helpful for us around these students. And so I really appreciated getting to read them, and I did read them thoroughly. So whatever form they take, if it's an approval or if it's just correspondence, I really like the idea.
If we have them for one, I understand that maybe it should be, so I don't know, looking forward to when we do fill the role of rec director, that it will fall into where the report from the rec director will come identify what's been happening, but also there'll be, I think, there's a lot of value in that report, seeing how everything is moving along, just like any other, whether it's public works or any of our other departments. So maybe that's because if we do it for one, I understand it should be balanced where we kind of hear from everyone. So any further questions? Like I said, we will be posting that. So I'm looking forward to filling that role sooner than later.
Through the chair, actually, I sent some documents off to finance just to review prior to meeting, publicly posting both the economic development vacancy and the new director of recreation. So they should, I'm hopeful, be out by the end of this week. And the tentative closing date that I have is May 21st for the finals.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor of receiving the minutes? Motion is carried. And 7, receiving the monthly staff report and recommendations.
The Council of the Township of North Norwalk receives this request to accept the proposed agreement with the Township of North Dundas to allow residents to use North Dundas hazardous waste depot. And further, that the Council of the Township of North Norwalk direct staff to negotiate and enter into an agreement with the Township of North Glengarry to allow residents to use the North Glengarry hazardous waste depot. Moved by Deputy Mayor Denton, second by Councilor Shane.
Thank you. Any or possibly council reading the report, do we get maybe?
Through the chair, I'll allow the public works superintendent to explain any details, but ultimately this is an increased opportunity for our ratepayers to be able to drop off material at 2 sites, both one in North Glengarry and one in Dundas. So it increases their capacity to drop items off instead of 1 day a year. And also it saves the ratepayers a considerable amount of money. So I believe this is a win-win. And that's why we're proposing this to council for their consideration. And I don't know if Blake wanted to add anything more expansive than that.
I'll just basically see you got the North Dundas, which they're allocating 7 days a year that will be, and those days will be published on our website once we.
Yes, they will. We're going to really start to promote our recycle app to post information and to get, now that social media and all this is everybody's carrying phones, that they can get reminders of important dates. And they can use this to actually remember, which happens a lot of times. We have this. For the past, we had the same day, the 1st of June, and for 10, 15 years, people still don't remember because it's not high in the priority list to remember. So the one thing you should know that North Glengarry is taking that to council in May, but I've been negotiating, discussion with, Tim Wright. And it's pretty well a done deal. They're going to use the rare plant, and they already got, and discussed with GFL, they already got certified to do it. I don't know if they got the training yet to actually implement it, but talking with the trainer and Tim, they were supposed to be trained either before the 29th or whatever of April. And the reason that, like, I've been thinking of this for many years, but I couldn't come to approach council to have someone on the east side of the township go all the way to the landfill site in Winchester. But now that we have 2 licensed sites for depots, they actually make a lot more money to maintain the depots, whether it's not really like it costs us roughly $10,000 a year just to have the 4-hour event of the loss money. I should pay tax money to be spent. So now they could, with the numbers in the report, they can actually provide our residents with a lot more flexibility at their convenience. And the only other option we have now is they have to pay $35 to go to the city of Cornwall to drop off hazardous waste. So this would be free for them, basically year round in Alexandria. And with the special event days in North Dundas, it gives them all the opportunities to schedule the hazardous waste to take it when that's convenient for them.
So no, I think, is there any questions from members of council? Go ahead, Mayor.
No questions, I just really, I think it's a good idea, we're actually offering more flexibility. I used to take it down to Cornwall because, you know, when you're cleaning out the basement or something like that, it doesn't necessarily line up with the 1 day a year in your storm. So from my perspective, I think it's a smart move. And I think it will offer people a lot more flexibility and you won't have to pay $35.
Any other question, Councilor Shane?
So, I think it's a great move, it's a big money savings in the township, but just for clarity, this is a question I asked. The North Stormont will no longer have its 1 day a year for the waste hazardous collection.
Yes, and I pushed this ahead so that, actually, I was provided before with Grainall, now it's owned by GFL. And the coordinator for GFL is promoting this to municipalities to actually, because they're not really losing any work. They're still providing the services, but they don't have to set up events and organize it all and try to find workers to work on a weekend. And that's what they're finding out now. They can't get qualified people to work on these weekends to host the events. And it's basically, we have June 8th this year. They already know if this goes through, I'm canceling my event for June 8th, and we'll be promoting this heavily through the website and actually posting it with visual posters in different locations throughout the municipality to say what is happening.
And if I may ask, so are both sites gonna be ready to accept our residents for free drop off? At what date? Because you mentioned about Alexandria.
Like I know Tim's going to council, they're supposed to be ready to start once the report goes in, I think, I'm not sure it's the 12th, 13th, or whatever. And, but our event won't be until June, that's why I'm trying to push this ahead so that they have time to get organized. Dundas, like you see the report where Dr. Danielle through all this, and they're ready to accept us. And I can't recall the first date that they have. But actually, I'm gearing to have all this stuff in place before our event date that people already kind of know about. So if we promote it and everybody's on board, then we can draw the information out to everyone to say, now you have a choice to go here, go there. Alexandria is 5 days a week, and Dundas has event days.
So this has, for something, it is a cost saving. Was there, information sent out to our residents that advertised the June 8th, like, has that been?
Yes.
Out? Because if that's the case, we will have to do some mediation, like get some flyers out at the local maybe post
Yeah,
office.
yes, that's what-
Maybe have somebody at the depot in Berwick. I'm just saying now, if somebody's seen it once, they will be showing up in Berwick and might not be happy if it's not,
Well, I agree.
Through the chair, we were gonna heavily canvass the community, both electronically and in strategic areas like the community centers and the post office. And certainly we can look at flyer that could really.
well, a local flyer in all of our local businesses might suffice, but it's just that we have to be aware of now that it was actually. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the transfers of these administrative. Motion is carried. Moving on to,
Through the chair, the treasurer just indicated that we could have a notice for the tax, so tax insert.
that actually
So that
would
would be
not
good timing.
that would be perfect. That's cool. All in favor of that? Moving on to, now were we dealing with both here? That was all one. Okay, moving on to 7.2 tender for Public Works -001-2024 for a hot mix paving.
That the Council of the Township of North Stormont received report tenders PW-001-2024 hot mix paving and awards the quotation to GIP Paving Inc. in the amount of $733,585 plus HST. Moved by Councilor Visuali, seconded by Councilor McDonald.
Get my computer back up there. So, I have questions. Maybe I'll start on this. So, Blake, I've looked at both in regards to tendering. And I see it done more at the county level. We've got I see the amounts that are in there in regards to GIP Paving Inc. And I see Blair Asphalt Product, which is a very minimal amount in there. My question, and I don't know if you have answers, that there's avenues where we get fees back from our quarries. We've got, being inside our municipality. So I'm just wanting to understand a little bit with this tender being so close. I want to see if there's discussions that maybe council can have to identify a local taxpayer which hires, I don't even know if GIP, maybe you can, but it's just that it's a local, the road that we're actually looking at is 1112.
Yes.
And if I look at the AO Blair, is basically at the corner of 1112, so there's a lot of avenues there that I'm thinking. The $6,000, so in regards to the aggregates that come out of quarries that we get from from the North Carolina quarries, we get
It's called a torque fee, and what it is for every ton from a pit or quarry within your municipality, torque is private organized, private government organized group that they collect the money and they distribute it back in a percentage back to the local municipalities, which the torque is 24 cents a ton. So we actually get 15 cents a ton from every ton of granulars or sand, or like I said, pits or quarries, whatever is licensed, we get reimbursed every year with torque fees in our budget. So yes, it's very close for the in the tender. I will note that the St. Albans Quarry is a very active quarry that supports us a lot with the torque fees. besides the creation of a lot of jobs. And, basically, just, knowing the history of it, roughly we get close to $200,000 a year from the two main active quarries of A.L. Blair. That's in Alberts and, Marquette Quarry, on the just off the 138, 417.
It was just a question, if the tender goes out to the other, do they extract out of this quarry, or would they be dealing with their own?
It directly whatever resources is in the municipality, so, I can say GIP does not have a asphalt plant in North Vermont. With the changeovers, all this stuff, I don't believe an active quarry that they have ownership of an active quarry in this township, because there is quarries licensed that you would never know. That was done years ago. But even on the asphalt section alone, you get, because of putting the granules in the asphalt, you get compensated with torque fees on that asphalt that comes out the gate.
I'll take any other question. Go ahead, Deputy Mentioned.
Yeah, it's a good point, like, it's such a small amount, and, I'm even thinking, the wear and tear on the roads, if somebody coming from a greater distance than Blair is coming, could easily make up a difference like that. As you know, I'm a strong, local, they're a local, company, within North Province, support us a lot. I believe they, given either money or in-kind service to a number of our major projects. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think we help support Moose Creek, Hall as well.
Yeah, yes, they, like A.L. Blair, Blair Asphalt, and TRP Concrete is actually the three different companies, but basically it's the Blair family that own all three. And yes, I believe last year alone, they gave, for the Moose Creek, new recreation building, I believe it was over $40,000. Grant, it took like $40,000 donation. It was within the three companies.
Well, that's good. I think they're a great corporate citizen. We need to look at the financials, and in my mind, like I say, given the torque fees, the potential wear and tear, moving equipment from a much farther distance into our municipality, which is what GIP would have to do. I really think, to me, given the fact that it's only $6,000, I would prefer us, and I'd be prepared to make a motion to change our initial motion to award it to Blair if council agrees.
Before we move further, is there any further questions? Stephen, if you look at the intent.
Great.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just wondering, I wanted to go with the policy surrounding which policy was. Is I know tendered properly there.
Yeah.
No, shut your mouth. Go ahead.
The current procurement policy is under review to make things much more simpler and much more cohesive as far as you do this for a quotation, you do this for a tender. What's not noticed in the current tender documents is there's two pre-trade agreements that we're supposed to follow, which allows the community to open it up and make an equal playing field to all vendors. And that's why you're given the opportunities of bidding low and things like that. So you can't necessarily, I know that the goodwill and the thoughts are to always promote local, but the trade agreements say just the opposite. So, it's ultimately council's decision on what they want to do, but it's being revised and will be brought forward. Yeah.
Before I go to break, do we have the clause so that we do not have to take the?
Absolutely, you don't have to take the lowest bidder. You just have to justify it to them if there's opposition.
And that was the only thing through the chair that I was gonna add. I appreciate the cautionary approach of the treasurer, but the council does have the discretion as long as we have
reasonable, rational.
Well, your elected officials are put in place to look at the best interest of the township. And I understand, oh, you know what, we've got $6,000 tender, cheaper tender, that's in front of us versus that. But I also, as mentioned with, not at Shop Local, but as far as, having one, company that is a taxpayer in our, community, is hiring good portion, majority of their, in our community. They are basically 400 meters away from the actual job site. Where if you're thinking green, we've got, I'm not sure where the other location would be, but it's not obviously within 400 meters of. So there's a lot of factors here that I would support Deputy Mayor Densham in saying we've looked at this, we've studied it, but my final thought would be to take in high consideration with the local.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I separated out my comments a little bit there to say, you know, where, like, what we are looking at is the tender in terms of how much we will pay, but there are additional costs that aren't always, that probably don't make a whole lot of sense to regularly be on a tender. But like I say, wear and tear on the roads and the torque fees and things like that, but I think with, if we were able to calculate that, we'd probably take the balance back into Blair's. So I don't think we're talking about enough money that it's making a big difference. I know that's not in the procedure per se, but these are things that I think as a council we're called upon to think beyond just the procedure, so.
Mr. Mayor, it's council's decision ultimately, for sure. And it's, I understand, I just want you to be aware of what's out there so you can make your own decisions, that's all.
Councilor Richard.
I'm kind of leaning the other way, to be honest. I understand obviously the value of local, but when it comes to tendering processes, these are done in a way that it makes it fair across the board. Being local shouldn't be a qualifying factor that has a monetary value on the certain factors that if, you know, the quality of the equipment, there's things like that that we can take into that could justify going with a bid that might be a little bit higher. Size of crews, the ability to do the job, past experiences. Those are all things that I think we could take into account for a decision like that. But when you're talking contracts to the tune of $750,000 to play favorites inside of having a proper grid, I'm not, that's my opinion.
In comments in regards to saying local, I'm not talking about shopping local, I'm talking about the torque fees that are coming out. We're not getting with one, but we're getting with the others. All of a sudden, the 6,000 is kind of tilted back to even closer allocation of what the
Possibly, the torque fees, depending on that company, GIP could be pulling their aggregate close to the job site. Well, it's in their best interest for their own equipment to get their aggregate for sources close to the job, so still getting those torque fees even with the GIP, right?
Go ahead.
Is there any comments, I guess, related, I agree that even legal is something like them. Work, speed of the work being done, is there any comments about the provider that's being considered the second? Most fair in terms of the quality of the work, is there any concerns with the bid, or are there any comments that might speak to what Adrian's describing?
Well, no, they're both reputable companies and they both perform excellent work.
Mayor, I still like to put it on the table, that we modify the, or amend the motion to actually, or modify the motion to support, Blair Asphalt, and I asked if anybody would second the motion to modify that, despite all the conversation, and actually even last term I was asking, it's interesting, Blackness came up because of, and the prices are so close, because I do believe there is value in other things that are not financially based, that maybe need to be included in our matrix. So again, we can't change that right now, but at some point it'd be nice for council to actually review the selection process and see whether or not we can add upwards to that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things, and it's not this, municipality, it's everybody involved in the tender process does not do well, is document after the work is done. Because if you document after the work is done and say they were on time, they met their deadline, they were prior to the deadline, their equipment was good, you know, you can get points for performance, but it really needs to be documented, and I think it's a process moving forward that should be done, because in this situation, it could be easily, like, everything's great from past experiences, but it's a great thing to have done after the work is done, so then in the future, you know.
And counties would be a good role model there, because I think they have the matrix to do all that, so.
I'll make the motion and see, so
What do you?
is to actually award the tender to Blair Asphalt Products Limited instead of, so I guess it's exactly the same, except for the last portion of the motion.
Initial cost.
in the cost.
Do you wanna add, go ahead?
I don't wanna sway council, I think you all know I've been here a long time. I could give you, most like 1,000 reasons why, when I started with the Art Blair, that would be, the grandfather now, that what they provided for the municipality, Roxville, North Stormont, Finch Township, in-kind work over the years that I've been around. Like besides the donation last year, 40,000, they donated to the Finch Arena back in 14, different projects. They have gave multiple money back towards in-kind work or actually cash donations. Not to go against, I know a lot of people are back in the Crookshank days with Crookshank, Cocoa Paving, GIP. I know a lot of them over my history, and they're really respectable people. But I don't want to go too far here, but if you know this, the same
With that said, I understand, I see the factors, I'm looking more of, it's in the backyard, like, I mean, this road is basically, their driveway comes off this road, that's what, and it's just that the green of having the material is right there, a local, I will support the motion is on the table, so I don't think we need to go any further, I'd like to
Well, do you need a,
read that, put up all read the,
739,998 plus HST.
They have the capacity to end.
so I'll have you read it.
And one,
So read it, and then I'll get the,
that the council of the township of North Stormont amend the motion to award the tender PW 0-001-2024. Offense paying to AL Blair in the amount of $739,998 plus HST. And it was moved by Deputy Mayor Danson.
so do I have a seconder? Second by Councilor Shin. And we'll put it to a vote, so all in favor? Opposed?
you're saying you're opposed.
Thing, so you actually, okay,
So you're the tiebreaker.
yeah, so, and I will vote in favor. So the motion is carried. Perfect, so moving on to tender 7.3.
That, sorry, just point of order, is that, then we just approved that, did we have to defeat the other one, or is this just an amendment?
That was an amendment to the existing
So now we actually have to, we have to approve it. You know what I mean? We approved an amendment, but we haven't. Or do we have to now, because the way let me put this, the way I understand it is, if you want to amend the motion, you have to make a motion to amend it. And then pass that amendment motion. Now we have to actually deal with the motion itself, so to say.
And you still have.
And you can't, it's not a matter of going back, it's not like it's now, do we want to do the work or not? Do we want to approve actually, the paving, now that we've decided as a council that it's going to be awarded to Blair, now we have to approve the motion to say, do we approve doing the work? That's what I understand the process, so. Yeah. Which exactly the same.
The last motion mentioned that we are awarding the
Yeah, and
tender to.
receiving report and.
Yeah, what should have been, is that we're modifying that to make it to Blair.
Yes.
And then, so, again,
And then the second one to award it to.
to actually do the work. So
What the easiest way would be.
we can just rewrite it as is, and we'll just now. That is the motion that's on the table. Motion.
Yeah, yeah. So you just rewrite the 7.2. No, we can amend the motion.
Yeah, just repeat it.
Now just repeat that we're gonna award it to,
Okay. That the council of the township of North Stormont and then motion to award the tender.
Sorry, we don't amend
so now we're awarding.
That the council of the township of North Stormont received report tender PW -001 2024 hot mix paving. And awards the quotation to A.L. Blair in the amount of $739,998 plus HST. Now that was moved by Council Jones and seconded by Council John.
Okay.
It's not A.L. Blair.
Through the chair, it's Blair Asphalt, not A.L. Through the chair, the treasurer just.
Praise and told Blair, I thought about it.
So
Yeah, Blair Asphalt products.
Because that's what they want.
you're right. So we all in favor of,
Then he's now, it's been moved to the second as amended. And now you can ask all in favor, unless there's more discussion.
the more discussion, seeing none, all in favor? Again. And then I will vote in favor.
Where was the voting in favor of? No, I just want to make it clear that there were two that were in agreement for the motion and then the two opposed. And the mayor was breaking that tie and that it was awarded.
We did it back, so the first one was awarding it, and then the second one. So,
Sure, it was stated that it was defeated. I just wanted to make sure for the record that it was not.
She did, like, we said defeated was rejected.
Yeah.
So it's confusing what you did.
so this one here was amended to that. And then our second one was to award the work to. Okay, so. We'll roll through, moving on to surface street, which is 7.3, tender PW -002 2024 regarding the surface street.
The council of the township of North Stormont received report on PW -002 2024 surface treatment and awards the tender to Miller Paving Limited in the amount of $350,392 plus HST. Moved by Deputy Mayor Denton, second by Council Shan.
Any questions regarding the surface treatment? We need, basically just get it, so I don't think we need any clarification, so all in favor of the motion is carried. Moving on to our variance report.
The council of the township of North Stormont accepts the variance report for the period ending March 31st, 2024 for information provided only. Moved by Councilman McDonald, second by Councilman Vidalis.
Any questions in regard, go ahead, Councilor or Deputy Mayor.
Wrote in my notes that I love the commentary. Yeah, it is really good. Thank you for that. It really helps us zero in on the areas that I should have questions because we covered everything. The only other comment I had though was my concern is for the building department. I'm really concerned at the fact that in other areas of our reports, we're saying that we're having challenges or potentially having challenges issuing building permits. My question is more about the budget. When we built the budget for the building department, did we have an assumption of the number of building permits that we would issue in a year? And are we at risk of not meeting that? And therefore, we're going to be over budget. We'll still have to incur most of the costs. And you may want to take that away, but
Through you, Mr. Mayor, those numbers were brought by the building department at the budget time, so I really don't have the details on that. I think it has a lot to do with development, so that might be changing after some other reports come forward. So, I can look into it for you and ask the building department.
yeah, and don't necessarily need a report, but if you feel there's a concern there, then maybe it's probably well, at some point. Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to come up with any solution.
Any further questions? Councilor John.
Just one actually under, I noticed it was up one that I understand, it was the public works was the regular wages for part-time. And we're already hitting 85% of our yearly budget for part-time wages. So this due to
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did hire someone part-time because we have some people that are off right now. And there's one individual that was put there that wasn't a planned placement as such. But you'll notice on the full-time regular wages, it's down significantly.
yeah, it's that should be used.
Any further questions? Seeing none in favor of accepting the variance report, motion is carried. Moving on to our revised cash handling policy.
The council of the township of North Stormont receives and approves report FIN 2024-06 from the treasurer to adopt the revised cash handling policy to be passed by bylaw. Moved by Councilor Vidalis, second by Deputy Mayor Denton.
Any questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Denton.
Just quite a change from it. It's the new one, so it's unclear to me what it was before.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the other cash handling, I believe, isn't this the second time we brought this forward? Anyways, the first cash handling policy didn't have very strong internal controls. So we had someone handling cash at the front, who's also getting receipts out and depositing. So those changes have tried to safeguard that individual in the municipality. So we have another person absolutely totally different handling the deposits and someone handling the cash. So it was more an internal control issue for that. The other change made to it was the fact that, for petty cash had a limit of $300, which is crazy. So we changed that limit to $15. So there were just minor tweaks in it, but really it was just to protect the employees and protect the municipality of any internal control issues. So they were minor changes and they just needed to be tweaked.
I don't know if we veered off from our, because I know the auditors, way back since I got on 10 years ago, have brought in where there's a standards where when you're dealing with cash that you have to, so I don't know if we veered off that or why we needed to revisit that, because from our auditors, I believe they would have guided us in the direction where we would have eliminated any of the risks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was also changes in timing. We used to have cash collected or debits collected, or checks collected, and we might collect them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then deposit Friday. You need to cut off. Whatever you receive today, you cut off today, you balance your cash today, it's done today. That was not being done.
Okay, so any further discussions? Seeing none, all in favor? Policy. Thank you very much. Moving on to for property tax collection policy revision.
The Council of the Township of North Stormont received a revised draft property tax collection policy for information purposes only to be passed at the next council meeting by bylaw, moved by Councilor Shane, second by Deputy Mayor.
Questions? Deputy Mayor Lynch.
Section 4.0. Kind of one of the bullets right in the middle where it says, so this is talking about, credits due, so it says accepted credits due to changes in assessment or payments made in error can be returned to the taxpayer, and here's the part that I have a question on, at the discretion of the treasurer. So the way it's worded just sounds like, you know, maybe you'll get your credit or maybe the discretion of the treasurer. I know that's not the intent, but I'm just wondering if the wording might be a little bit better.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the reason for that is sometimes with reassessments, you'll wind up, not reassessment, but you're fighting your assessment, or there's been a severance, or whatever the case may be. You'll wind up, say, a credit of $600 on your account. Some people want that back. Some people are happy to leave it there so they don't have to pay so much next year. That's why that's left there. And sometimes people will ask, I got a $20 credit and I want it back. Well, it costs us more to process it than that's worth. So that's the intent of this. But if you want me to make it a little firmer, that's not an issue.
So it just kind of stood out to me, probably to use, whether or not to see that as a potential issue, but
Is it possible to identify a specific amount and say, okay, this is not worth our time, but anything above it would be, just so that we're not saying, no, I'm gonna decide if you're getting.
maybe at the request, rather than the discretion of the treasurer, like you said, put an amount and then say, you know, can be issued a refund at the request of the retailer.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted council to be aware of a few things in the report. Because I need to know how you feel about these things before moving forward. First of all, I don't agree with third-party checks, and that's a big red flag to me. I'm not accepting a baby bonus to pay the taxes. Changes to the pre-authorized payment plan, I wanted you to be aware of this. There's three, not three. There's, you can pay for 10 months, 10 monthly installments. The 12 monthly installment, we have a few agreements where arrangements have been made for tax arrears. So we've said, okay, we're in agreement for you to pay $300 a month, we'll take it out on a monthly basis. But that option 3 also states, what amount do you want to pay? So you can say, I want to pay $50 a month for 12 months. Well, that's not going to pay your arrears off. It's not going to be like, some people won't pay their interest. So I don't think that's a really wise option for tax collection. So that's what that paragraph is. The The other thing is, we do get people who are complaining that they didn't get their tax bill, and if it's not returned to us, we assume it is sent to them, and that's under the municipal act that says it's the ratepayer's responsibility to change that. And we get it in writing or we get it in email, because we don't want it to go to your property address. Say you have a property here, but your mailing address is in Quebec, well, I'll send it where you want, that's fine, it's your responsibility to let me know. One of the other things, I don't know what the appetite is like. Right now, we send out an interim bill, we send out a final bill, and on those bills, it notes any arrears and penalties that apply to your account. We send out 3 reminder notices, then we send out a letter saying you're not being really good at paying your taxes, then we send out another letter saying you're not paying your taxes, and then we send out a 3rd one. So we send out a total of 6, 7, 8 notices before we register their property. That's a lot of money and a lot of administrative time. So I'd like to cut that down to 1 after your interim, after your final, we'll send out 1 reminder. And then if you're just ignoring us, we send a final letter saying, please make arrangements with us, or we're going to start the registration process. The registration process then allows the ratepayer another full year to pay their taxes in full. So I think we're being quite lenient here. It's just, it's getting a little much. Also, one of the things that I would like to change, the municipal act does allow a ratepayer to get an extension. So once the property is registered, so now they're 3 years in arrears, it gives the ratepayer the opportunity to come to council and say, I'd like to extend that for another year. Well, I think 4 years of arrears is a little ridiculous. So I don't really want that in the policy as such. Another thing that is in here is MPAC currently allows vacancy rebates. We have 1 property. And they get 30% discount in their taxes, but that there's no incentive for them to have it occupied. And there's no way we govern it, we go check it out. And if they use it for renting out someone's for storage, we're unaware of it. It's only 1 vacancy rebate. The county doesn't have it, North Glengarry, South Glengarry, and I think everybody else does not have a vacancy rebate program. It wouldn't come into effect until 2025. They could still apply for the 2024 year, but it's again another thing administratively for what we're getting, what we're allowing is really not very, I don't think it's very good. Another thing that was done with it, the policy was very, very process driven. So it says, you do this after 1 year, you do this after 1 year, you do this, where the payments go and all that. The problem with putting that in a policy is when the municipal act changes or municipal sales tax changes or any of those acts change, you gotta bring this back again. Whereas if you leave it in accordance to the municipal sales tax act and the municipal act, when the acts change, the policy follows the new processes. So they're the major changes.
So in regards to those changes, would we be, so that's not affecting us getting our tax exempt for this?
No,
Then is that something you could possibly, like, it almost sounded fair to what you're saying, but if you could bring it back in a proposal where we can,
Yeah, just that.
we can identify it and give you direction and pass it as a whole, would that make more sense?
yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, the intent is, I wanted to have an appetite for these changes prior to making the changes. And for you to see old versus new in a chart as such. I just wanted to know the appetite for it because I'd really like to get it approved prior to the tax bills going out. So we have direction for those reminder notices and things like that. The change to that 12-month thing would not occur until January 2025 because people will pay it until, and gives us time to notify them and get them on board. But I just wanted the appetite for it in the hopes that we can bring it forward by bylaw next council meeting.
It's just, I think what was brought forward, as far as I thought it would have been legislated, as far as the amount of time you have, so you're saying we can chop it in half and from 8 to 4, I thought that would have been more set in stone as far as how the municipal act would govern them.
For example, the act change, at one point it said years have to be 3 years, well, now it's only 2 years. The municipal act used to say if we only were owed $20,000 and someone paid us 100, that other lien payers could come and request it. After a year, we can get it back. We can't get it back after 10, and it goes to the accountant of the Superior Court. So these things that have changed, are now not following what we say we're gonna do.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. They all sounded good at the surface, but it was moving so fast and it's hard to absorb. So yes, I think I would be favorable to a number of the ones that there's a couple that kind of stood out in terms of shortening it from 4 to 3 years that I think I would support fully. But the devil's in the details. So I think I'm generally supportive, but I would love to be able to see it laid out so I can study it a little more closely and take it point by point.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I put a chart over the new?
Perfect.
Okay.
Everybody agree? Perfect. Where were we? So in regards to any further questions in regards to the seeing none, all in favor? Motion carried. Moving on 7.7 agricultural committee.
The Council of the Township of North Stormont supports the amendments to the Agricultural Committee pilot project terms of reference, moved by Councilor Shane, second by Councilor McDonald.
Any questions in regard to? Just. Give us the overview.
So the agricultural committee has had a few meetings and in those meetings that we had, there were a few issues that came up, and I think that the CEO has captured them accurately in the report. There's really two main recommendations. We'd like to expand the size of the group. It's just difficult for 3 people. If we don't get 2 of them, we have one member. We didn't really with Charles and I showing support. So we did have interest from other applicants, so hopefully those applicants are interested. If not, it sounds like sort of groups support that. And also requesting to reduce the number of annual meetings, but allow the meetings to be at the call of the chair of the administration. And that's just to make sure that we create agendas for the group that are really relevant, meaningful, and that they actually, come out and spend time. There's a bunch of other ideas that came up that Charles and I threw at them to see what they might like, but they were really pretty simple, and that they were for that their time be used wisely, and that there be not as much dependence on all of them. And I don't know if that's what she.
Actually covered, we discussed in the meetings quite well. They're all farmers for the most part and trying to attend. We don't have real group that affects them with kind of their biggest concern. So if something comes up on a big topic of concern, set a date for the meeting.
Thank you. So all in favor of, or go ahead, as council.
I want to make a comment. Having more members also means you need more members to reach quorum as well. So hopefully the reduction in the number of meetings will get you higher attendance, which I think is fundamentally what you're looking for. So I'm hopeful that that's the case. But again, depending on the timing and based on what you've been experiencing, my hope is that we're not going to increase it to the point where it's even harder to get quorum because you're going to have more people thinking, ah, make that a go right.
But to add to that, if you only have 4,
Yeah.
you can't have it's not a quorum of 2. So when you go to 5 or 6, you're still at 3 to get quorum. So I think if you can get that 1 or 2 extra person, will be a big factor as far as.
And we're also very demographically narrow. As and lots of families, and I think maybe diversifying the community will get better attendance too.
And through the chair, we had some very credible individuals that had applied to the first round last year. So again, once council, if they accept the report, I will reach out to those individuals. I still have them on file, and I'm hoping that they're still.
Thank you. So in favor of For the report for our household, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. There's, our next one in regards to 2024 in the allocation for dollars.
That the council of the township of North Toronto receives and approves the 2024 annual development allocation recommendation for the Finch, Chrysler, and Moose Creek municipal water and wastewater systems, and approves the recommendation to determine the annual development allocation for the year 2024. Moved by Deputy Mayor Denton, seconded by Councilor Shan.
Before I go to questions, Emily with us, I know you want questions. Did you want to maybe just add the work that you've done as far as coming up with the allocation that we do have and what we're trying to attain here?
Yes, so we did, it was Andre and I that did the calculations. We did use the D-5-1, I believe. It is the calculations that the government of Ontario recommends that we use. And we did that to get the water numbers, the water allocation numbers and the lagoon numbers as well. As well as the pump station numbers. While doing those numbers, we did realize that some of them were in the negatives, and I think Craig can speak more on this with his report.
Well, thank you again. There was a lot of work done on behalf of our staff to come up with these numbers in short notice before I pass it on to our CAO. What it is that we have here, so there's an allocation that's calculated with the high peak flows. And even though we've had certain events, we're trying to identify that those high peaks don't necessarily mean the true factors, and we're trying to justify. But in doing so, we are working with the ministry, with MCP, and in regards to that, when we try to identify the urgency here, is we have developers that have got land that are ready to go. There's houses that are ready to be applied for permits, and this is actually holding back the actual issuing of a permit for houses that are actually already sold and builders trying to move on. So Craig, maybe I'll get you to go through the numbers and just sort of where we came at to identify the need for what we're proposing.
Well, through the chair, firstly, the allocation report reflects administration and public works efforts and suggested recommendations for water and sewer allocation for 2024. This was a carefully balanced approach to support residential housing, our local developers, and also, of course, to support the provincial housing initiative. So, as has already been stated, some of these systems are reaching their life cycle capacity. The report does include mitigation strategies that we discussed with some of our professional contractors, just to ensure that we were doing our due diligence. So there's a number of layers in that report that reflect some of the safeguards that we have in place. Ultimately, the capacity issues are for septic, and that is in Moose Creek respectively and Finch respectively. Moose Creek had a calculation of 31 allocations for this calendar year. We believe the numbers we're suggesting are easily defendable. And again, if we do have one of these 100-year weather events that spike our flows into lagoon, we do have a strategy with our aqua partners, and we will be soliciting the CP. And the other issue, so there's the lagoon limitation in these Creek as well as the pump issue, and there are some recommendations that council is going to have to look at as far as moving a little faster than we still have to get, of course, our master plan. And Finch, the issue is the pump in Finch. And those numbers came out in negative for this calendar year, but we do believe we have the capacity to issue the 25 that are indicated in that report. I don't know if anything to add.
No, Craig is we were right on there. using mathematical numbers and using, in my term, realistic operational practice that I know we can maintain, but, basically, I don't think we'll put anybody at risk by, allowing to go off the math numbers to actually realistic numbers that we can sustain as an operator. Operates, but I mean, as to maintain it. So, basically, it's, like we talked before, the situation sometimes is, and it's gone on for years, is council have, like I said before, have to take a strong line on who is causing, the problems in the system that is causing the increased flows into our system that's taking up capacity. It's right across Ontario. It's been well known for years across Ontario, and basically, as you found out today, trying to get money to maintain water and sewer, it's very expensive, and the first thing we should be doing is trying to prevent any influence into the system, even if it's legally our problem, or it have to be a landowner that has some kind of influence going into our system. That'd be the first step to, and a cheaper step, but we have to have great enforcement and penalties to maintain that, we can't ask today, and they turn around, we inspect, everything is good. They turn around before next spring, which is always a high peak flow, they can turn around and reattach whatever they were putting into the system that we found. So, I mean, that's an ongoing problem, and many councils before you have had the same question come to them. Because it's now that we're reaching the capacity, now it's really getting to the point where it's a matter of, we have to do something.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and I don't know across the province if there is measures where there's actual fines that are brought forward, that'd be something to look at, because like I said, once you remove the issue, then once water starts flowing again, a lot of people don't want that water, and it's easy just to, again, reconnect, but that's on our good citizen or community to understand that it has a big effect on our relief. But just with all that said, we do have measures, again, speaking about the ministry, so we're working on with RB Anderson on our service master plan that is being worked on. Hopefully will be in our hands sooner than later. We're still expecting a timeline there. Also, we have applied for funding through, I'm not sure, maybe we can like the fund that was, which is in respect to helping out with the EA, with the environmental assessment. So that's being worked on, which again, we have to keep the momentum going. So one, fingers crossed that we succeed in the funding. If not, we still have to identify measures where we're gonna have to implement some kind of action on our part, so that we, like every other municipality, we never want to come at a standstill where you're liking it up. So that will be definitely coming on, also stable in the near future. Yeah, Deputy Mayor mentioned.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to staff. I believe you're working really hard to achieve these numbers. And it's been a lot of work, but we need to keep it on the gas pedal. These will run out quickly as well, and we'll be right back in the same boat. And I appreciate all the stuff that the mayor said, and I know you're working hard. Just want you to know that we're behind you on that work, and we look forward to anything we can uncover to help either mitigate the work through, or get us into where we want to be in the future. I know in many of the discussions that have been happening around that a lot of municipalities have numbers that are even tighter than ours. And maybe they're not doing the right thing, and I'm not asking that we do the wrong thing, but if there are ways that we're missing in terms of opportunities to mitigate or to look for the pressure points to be able to, call stuff out, as I think Blake is already investigating. We just need to find a way to keep the foot on the gas pedal, because we have a great opportunity right now, that's a long time coming in my groups. But thank you for the list.
Go ahead, Councilor McDonald.
So SEMA has reviewed this.
Yes, they, basically, I believe SEMA Plus is going to come back with, some documentation in early May. That, I believe that's what, my correspondence with Jerry and, Bradley Young, who specializes in this, water and sewer in SEMA Plus. So, we've been sending them documentations, we've been sending them some of the cammering, where we've got influence into the system. And, basically, we're still moving ahead, so he's collecting more information and basically preparing to give more of a concrete direction to council of which way we should be going.
With that said, so we should be thankful. So we have the stakeholders, the SEMA, they have been working with us. It makes it very difficult for an engineering firm to go outside of the numbers. You can assume, you can, anticipate different, so I think what, in discussions and just how we're not allocating the bank farm. So, but it's at least something that we go from 31 to 50, which is 19. It's not, and again, they're not necessarily built out of that. So we're allocating them, but potentially there could be only 10 or 15 that will get allocated in 2024. So depending on market and how sales go, but it's just that we do understand that the circumstances that we're under, the pressure that we're under, and just allowing ourselves that small area to be able to just keep it moving, and hopefully it'll buy us the time to get the service plan in place, knowing, understanding what it is that we need. Right now, it's so, whether we can dredge that thing and regain some allocation, there's all kinds of day and day and how we can move on it.
And for council's knowledge is, these numbers could change year to year. Because they use averages, and so whenever we repair or we improve the system, the next year, with our improvement, 1 year, next year gives us more capacity. So if we invest and improve the system, we can actually create more capacity without major costs. So, but that's, it's all an ongoing process to keep this going, basically.
Any further questions? Seeing none, so all in favor of the small extension that presented in front of us. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to 7.9, the GFL pre-servicing agreement.
The council of the township of North Shoreline accepts this information report and supports the pre-servicing agreement for the GFL landfill. Moved by Councilor McDonald, second by Councilor Shaney.
Thank you, Mr. Paul, we got Paul on the line. Nice to see you, Paul. Welcome, and maybe I'll just to get the council brief a little better on what's taking place.
Certainly nice to see you too, Mr. Mayor. As council is aware, GFL is in the process of obtaining site plan approval from the township for the expansion of its waste handling facility at Highway 138 and the Flush Road. Recently, the township received a request from GFL to permit some initial earthworks to be conducted on the site in advance of their site plan approval. And this is because they're continuing to manage the need to expand their existing facility in advance of it reaching capacity next year. Staff subsequently advised that this could be permitted by entering into a pre-servicing agreement with the township. A pre-servicing agreement is essentially a legal agreement between the township and a site plan applicant to permit the applicant to move forward with infrastructure and site works in advance of their approval. And it's composed of two primary components. The first is a recognition that the pre-servicing approval does not prejudice the final site plan approval. And that means essentially if the final site plan approval requires that something be be completed that was not completed or be completed differently, and then eventually specified in the final approval, GFL will be required to change it in accordance with the final approval. And the second component of that agreement is the identification and location of specified works to be conducted and the posting of financial security to ensure due performance. So again, the agreement essentially indemnifies the municipality and from any obligation to I guess change the final plans in accordance with what the earthworks they're getting permission for now. It also ensures that we've got financial security in place to make sure that those works are performed in a good workmanlike manner and to ensure due performance of the works. Regardless, so at the end of the day, the pre-servicing agreement was prepared by the municipal solicitor. It's been reviewed by myself. It's also been reviewed by the CAO. And I think I can certainly, Craig can add anything to this, but I think we're satisfied that it adequately protects the township while permitting GFL to advance their complex construction schedule. So as such, we do have a recommendation to move forward with this pre-servicing agreement to allow GFL to conduct some initial site works on the property. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm certainly happy to field any questions that council may have.
Paul, any questions in regard to? So I think like anything else with the pre-servicing agreement, I think we've got the people in place to look at the best interests, all of the review, as well as I believe Peter would have been on this, Craig, the CAO. So I'm confident that part of the securities that's been also looked at and everybody's confident in that aspect.
Through the chair, the administration did take a cautious approach, as you've already indicated, politics has looked at it, city township solicitor has looked at it, and all in agreement that satisfies and protects the township.
Very much. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to our municipal bylaws, so bylaw number 32-2024 regards to temporary patio extension policy.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 32-2024 being a bylaw to adopt a temporary patio extension policy required under Ontario Regulation 746-21. Be read first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed this 30th day of April 2024. Moved by Councillor Shane, second by Councillor Vigelli.
Well, I'll have a question. So does this apply to a specific, or is that just, was that a request from a specific individual or?
Through the chair, this is just a follow-up to the earlier report, and we had 4 applications, I believe, 3 of which there's no fee because they're volunteer rec committees. There's actually one that is actually will be within the silo that will actually pay the fee. So this is just a follow-up to the report that was already approved by council. I believe it was last council, or not.
Any questions in regards? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carried. And bylaw number 33-2024 regarding the cat handling policy.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 33-2024 being a bylaw to repeal and replace the cash handling policy and storage of petty cash funds be read first, second, and third time. Signed and sealed this 30th day of April 2024. Moved by Councillor Vigelli, second by Councillor Shane.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. There's no unfinished business, no new business or motion, no motion. So let's move on to correspondence. So 12.1 to 11.
Be it resolved that the correspondence as listed as items 12.1 to 12.11 on the agenda be received. Moved by Councillor Vigelli, second by Councillor Shane.
Any questions in regards to correspondence? Seeing none, all in favor of receiving? Thank you very much. Motion is carried. And schedule for our schedule of meetings. Which will be taking place. The Committee of Adjustment is meeting on May the 6th at 8:30 a.m. We've got our regular meeting on May 14th. May 16th has the fire service committee, starting at 6:30, and last, regular meeting of May will be May 28th, 2024 at 6:30. Moving to the ratification of that.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 34-2024 being bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify council's actions at its regular meeting of April 30th, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed, and open council this 30th day of April 2024. Moved by Council Shane, seconded by Council Vajali.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion is carried, and we move to adjournment.
Be it resolved that this regular meeting adjourn at 8:19 PM. Moved by Council Vajali, seconded by Council Shane.
All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, council, for staying evening. I look forward to having a good rest of your evenings. Have a good night, everyone, and